Hello everybody, here we are with another video today talking about the Los Angeles Kings, and if it's time to panic with how the Kings have been on a recent skid. So before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So LA is currently on a 7-game losing streak, and a lot of people are wondering, is this time to panic, and what exactly is going on here? I'm just going to say right out of the gate in a short answer, no, it's not time to panic. Looking at the start of this losing streak compared to just beforehand, their playoff percentage isn't greatly changed, and we will get to that towards the end of the video. Before all this, though, it was just a hair over 93%, and I'll tell you what it is at the end of the video, which is also partially why I'd say it's not time to panic, at least to a certain degree. But the first thing that I want to say here is over an 82-game season, you're going to see some highs and lows. You can't go out there and have, 3 20-game winning streaks and just expect that to go out there and happen. You're going to be lucky if you go out there and win 10 games in one stretch alone. So there are highs and lows that you go out there and see this for this season. And the Kings are unfortunately just in one of those lows. But the good news is it's not really a big low, despite the fact that it is 7 games. But it's something that, again, they're in a great spot to still make the playoffs. So for starters, looking at this 7-game stretch, analytically, I would say that things, while they're not great or terrible, for most of these stats that I looked at, they looked pretty much average. They had an average save percentage. They had like an average expected goals for percentage. Their expected goals for per 60, I don't think was just awful. There were some things where, it was maybe like high 20s, but for the most part, it ranged anywhere from 14 to 20 for most of these stats. So a lot of it even fell right into that 16 range over the 7 games that they played, going from, I think, December 28th to today. So there's that. Now, I would do a deeper dive normally with this, but at the same time, I did the notes for Anaheim last night. Just kind of hung out with the wife and then ended up going to bed, going to work. I knew today was going to be a disaster at work, so I was like, let's just do kind of off the top video where I talk about this Kings side. And I think for this 7-game run, the good news for them is 4 of these losses have come in regulation, or after regulation, I should say. So either shootout loss or they lost just, an OT. So they've only had 3 losses that have come in regulation. You're picking up 4 points in a 7-game stretch. Yeah, that's not great, but compared to some other teams, look at a team like the Sharks right now that are currently on a 12-game skid. They haven't picked up any points at all over this stretch, and I have no idea the last time that San Jose won. I just did a video over them not too long ago, earlier in the week, so I probably should know that. But the Kings are in that weird same boat where the Sharks, them, and I believe one other team have not won in 2024. So I guess, yeah, middle of January, it's a little concerning that the Kings are in a spot where they haven't won a game. But looking at what I said, picking up those points in OT, the shootout, whatever it may be, is big. And the great news about what we've talked about with LA is the fact that 6 of these 7 losses have been 1-goal games, which blows my mind. They're able to keep things this close. And again, I could probably go through and I could look at every game and then, look at some of the analytics and say, oh, well, maybe this game they deserve to be down more, or maybe this game they deserve to win it. The point remains, if you have 6 of your 7 games where you lose by 1 score and your numbers don't look awful, I'm not going to panic, because highs and lows. The only time that they ended up losing by more than 1 goal during this stretch was against Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's a side that probably will make the playoffs. They lost to them by a whopping score of 3-0. That's not exactly something to go out there and scream about. Now, there are a few things that people will probably freak out about. Again, the losing streak, and the biggest thing being that there are some other teams streaking behind them. But I do want to preface the fact that they played 2 teams that were really on the hot hand right now, the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. They just lost to Florida last night, I should say, to extend this streak. I don't want to get tongue-tied here, to 7 games, but the Panthers are on a 9-game win streak and the Oilers are on a 9-game win streak. So in the 7-game stretch, you're running into 2 teams that are very hot. The Oilers have been hot for a bit. The Panthers are hitting their groove. Matthew Tkachuk has been able to be really hot since the middle of December. So again, kind of factoring into that, that's not the end-all be-all to lose to these teams. Now, we do have some things where you could say, well, now there's time to panic, and what would those be? I think the biggest thing would be their cushion has definitely evaporated. So with the Oilers and the Kraken being in their division, and the Oilers again being on a 9-game win streak, they are right there in a wildcard spot, but they're also not too far behind the Kings at the moment. And the points gap is relatively small. So there is big concern about this streaking Oilers side being able to upend the Kings yet again, this time not being in the playoffs. And I do understand that. So there is that. The other thing being Seattle is streaking as well. And if they're able to go on a run, maybe they could pass up the Kings. But I would argue, especially with Seattle, they have played, I think, 4 more games than LA at the moment. So there's not a real cause for concern here, because they still look pretty good. In terms of making the playoffs right now, the Kings, I said at the beginning of the video, are about 93%, or they were about a hair over 93%. It was like 93.3. Right now, according to MoneyPuck.com, they are at 92.2%. So things look pretty good. Now, will they be as a wildcard team? Will they be as a top 3 team? I would say, again, with Vegas and Vancouver being the state they're in, I guess Vegas hasn't been flawless over their past 10 games, but Vancouver on a 4-game win streak, possibly able to sweep their road trip. That means that you're looking at the 3 spot or lower. You might want to look a little bit lower down in the standings, and that is something that you'll have to watch out for. But we will see. And the biggest concern really for me is in their next 4 or 5 games. I think they have 4 teams that have something to play for, so that would be where you're more concerned, looking at games against the Hurricanes, the Rangers, and I think Tampa Bay might be thrown in there as well. Those are teams that certainly have a lot to play for, and that's where you get those cases where you dump the puck in and it's a 50-50 battle. You got to go out there and win it, because at a certain point, the winning streak, or the losing streak, I should say, does become a big concern. If it's stretched into 10 games or more and you're still winning in overtime, that's great. But at the same time, when you have some other teams that are picking up 2 points a night and they are rolling with full head of steam, that is where you start to panic a little bit. But for now, my biggest thing being with LA, they look playoff bound. They'll probably get things figured out. The save percentage especially doesn't look bad during this stretch, and you're hoping maybe like a guy like PLD could get things going a bit. But yeah, there's that. So this is just my little rant about the LA Kings and why their 7-game skid is not the end-all be-all. Anyway, what do you think for the Kings heading into the new year? When will they pick up this first win of 2024? And how do you think they will finish out the year? Will they finish 3rd in the division? Will they finish 1st? Will they end up going to the wild card spot? Or maybe in a crazy world, they end up missing the playoffs? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And Eagle love hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.